I'm honored to have been asked to present some of our research from Texas here today. I'm Hen Nguyen. I coordinate the Peers Against Tobacco statewide program in Texas, which is a tobacco nicotine prevention program operating on 27 college campuses across Texas. So a few studies have evaluated differences in tobacco use and differences in motivating factors to quit tobacco between four-year university students and two-year community college trade school students, which ultimately kind of limits our ability to, really create targeted prevention intervention programs that may be best suited for these two types of unique college campus environments. I'm happy to be able to share some of our preliminary results with you all here today, and I hope you will find it interesting and useful. So every spring, we administer a statewide online survey that assesses the students' knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors related to all conventional tobacco products and some alternative tobacco products. In 2023, we sent out the survey to approximately 376,000 students across Texas, received about 17.5 thousand responses. So we either obtain students' email addresses through open records for public universities, or we request that administrators at private universities send out the survey directly to their students. This past year, we were able to have a total of 22 unique Texas schools participate in our survey. And you can see here, from the past 4 years, each year we receive about 18,000 to 20,000 responses from students all across the state of Texas. So our initial number of responses was about 17.5 thousand for the 2023 survey, as I just mentioned, and then we filtered out 616 individuals due to lack of consent, age limitations, or survey incompleteness. So for this presentation, I compared two samples of 14 four-year universities and 8 two-year community colleges or trade schools. So here are the demographic items from the 2023 sample. So these are the basic demographic items of age, gender, and race that we have in our survey every year. For both samples, you can see here predominantly female identified sample, predominantly Hispanic, Latino, and white. Kind of as expected, older average age for the 2-year sample compared to the traditional 4-year university sample. And of note, this self-perceived SES item here is based on the MacArthur Scale of Subjective Social Status. It's a 10-point scale. And the question is, the highest number, 10, represents the people who are the best off, those who have the most money, the most education, and the best jobs. And at the bottom, 1 are people who are the worst off, and those who have the least money, least education, and worst jobs or no job. Select the number that best reflects your immediate family's situation currently. So you can see that the 2-year sample did score lower on average for this scale than the 4-year sample. So our surveyed tobacco nicotine products were combustible cigarettes, cigars, hookah, smokeless tobacco, electronic nicotine delivery systems, which I'll refer to as ENDS. They're also known as e-cigarettes, vapes, vape pens, vape pods, synthetic nicotine disposable vapes, and oral synthetic nicotine products like pouches, toothpicks, or lozenges. So we did a series of chi-squares to assess, were there any statistically significant differences in the prevalence of current use for the 5 tobacco products and the 2 synthetic nicotine products I just mentioned in the previous slide. So current use was assessed by asking those who've used tobacco or nicotine even just once in their lifetime, which I'm going to call ever users. If these ever users have used any of those 7 products at least once in the past 30 days. Those who answered at least one day in the past 30 days, they were labeled as a current user in our data. So here are the percentages of current users for each product in both samples. So compared to the 2-year community college students, 4-year university students have higher prevalence of current use for every tobacco nicotine product. And that proportion of difference in prevalence was statistically significant between the 2 samples for cigarettes specifically, and synthetic nicotine vapes and synthetic nicotine oral products. So Four-year university students are more likely to use these products at least once in the past 30 days, but how many days are these students actually using? Or was it a one-time experimentation? Was it a one-off social use, for example? So are there any differences in intensity of use between these two types of students? Okay, so although more four-year university students reported currently using all tobacco products, as we just saw on the previous slide, community trade school students actually have a higher average frequency of days used for every product compared to four-year students. This difference in what I'm going to call intensity of use was statistically significant between the two samples for cigarettes, cigars, and ends. So community trade school students have a higher average frequency of pass-through use for every product. So we didn't assess the number of days use of the synthetic nicotine products in the 2023 survey. So unfortunately, I don't have that data to show you today. And then we're going to move on to motivating factors, and I'll wrap around to conclusions at the very end. I should have apologized for how much orange there is on this presentation. Can you tell? I'm from UT Austin. There's a lot of orange. I love orange. Hook 'em. So moving on to motivating factors to quit, we asked all the current tobacco nicotine users in the entire sample about whether they endorsed, so agreed or disagreed, just simply yes or no. Are these various factors, were they motivating for them or their college student peers to eventually quit using tobacco? So here are all the motivating factors that we surveyed. And then they're highlighted in green are the three motivating factors that a statistically larger proportion of university students endorsed over their two-year counterparts. So these were personal health concerns, dating someone who doesn't approve of tobacco use, and money cost of products. There were no other significant proportional differences between the two samples for the other motivating factors. But I'll pause on the screen for a little bit so you can look at all of the motivating factors that we surveyed and the prevalence for each sample. So although it's not a significant difference between the two types of students, it's interesting to note that just on endorsement percentage alone, it seems that the top three motivating factors for two-year students were personal health concerns, money cost of products, and desire to be free of addiction. So although their four-year counterparts also highly endorse those three motivations, just viewed alone in the context of just a two-year sample, those were the top three highest reported motivations to quit from the two-year sample. So conclusions are that although a greater portion of four-year university students reported currently using nearly all tobacco products, it is two-year community college trade school students that reported using at a greater frequency. The higher overall prevalence of current use among the four-year universities could be due to like shorter lasting experimentation of the products, but it's actually the higher frequency, the higher intensity of use among the two-year students that's concerning, because that means that that population is at more risk for nicotine dependence and longer term or even lifelong use. And then further, some of these two-year students graduate, they may have a continued higher post-graduation risk of longer use due to the additional risk factors of entering more blue-collar trade occupations. Another conclusion is that for four-year university students, the highest reporting key motivating factors to quit, personal health concerns, partner disapproval, and cost of products should guide the development of targeted messaging and support services. For two-year college students, the top three motivating factors to quit were personal health concerns, cost of products, and desire to be free of addiction. My recommendations are because college-age individuals across, no matter the type of institution, they have the highest prevalence of tobacco nicotine use among all age groups. So anti-tobacco efforts should remain focused on college students in general, regardless of institution type. But there is a need to disaggregate this data, the student data, to better inform health education campaigns. So as we saw, students from trade schools and community colleges may be the ones, compared to their four-year university counterparts, at higher risk of lifelong dependence use due to higher intensity of use. Future work should track patterns of community trade school students' tobacco use post-graduation. So tracking two-year college students' tobacco use is super important, particularly important, not just because the data is scarce, data on this population is lacking compared to data on four-year students, but because increasing numbers of students in the United States are enrolling in trade and technical programs versus four-year institutions. And then lastly, interventions to reduce tobacco use should not be one size fits all. Different educational institution types will require varying approaches. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the programmatic examples from our Peers Against Tobacco program in Texas. I'll call it PAT for short throughout the rest of this presentation. So personal health concerns were the #1 motivating factor for both four-year and two-year students. So this past year, we based our campaign messaging on discouraging tobacco and nicotine use by really emphasizing all the varied potential health risks associated with vaping and smoking, focusing on vaping, of course, because it is the product of highest prevalence among all college students. So you can see here, this is a large poster. These are our infographics, and these are short little 30-second social media clips, all centered around the personal health concerns of vaping. And then in terms of outreach and peer education on campuses, I want to talk a little bit more about my experiences as the Peers Against Tobacco coordinator for both four-year and two-year institutions. So for both types of institutions, young adults are the most productive. We've observed year after year when they are connected with a dedicated staff administrator on campus. So each participating school needs at least one campus administrator or faculty member to serve as a supervisor to the students. So having a supervisor holds students accountable, and it helps ensure that projects are being overseen and monitored by an authority figure on campus. Outreach via tabling is easily one of the most effective, most popular components of our program. So we've learned to always have materials on hand to ship to schools for their tabling events. About these materials, for two-year colleges, we've learned that it's best to always provide a welcome kit that has all the full tabling essentials. So don't assume that these students would have a tablecloth, a pop-up banner on hand. And further, for two-year institutions, there may be less cohesion, less centered planning and resources, or the campuses may lack a dedicated group or a department for tobacco prevention outreach on their campus. So at UT Austin, we've learned that we should do all the planning and organization on our end and then send out fully assembled, complete pop-up events in a kit, in a box, essentially, directly to our two-year campuses. These contain, you can see here, instructions for how to easily set up the entire pop-up event wherever they have a space and time on campus to do it. All supplies, activities, props, games for the event are included in the box. And then for our four-year institutions, we found that instead of these ready-made pop-up events in a box, providing instead small project funding for these schools to do whatever best fits their already dedicated health promotions or health staff programming. These are likely already firmly established on the four-year campus. That would be best. So administrators on four-year campuses most appreciate, we've learned, annual funding for their own creative events and ideas within their existing campus drugs, alcohol, and other health programming. So we provide the funding, and we do provide all the printed educational materials and some branded tabling swag. And then the schools, these four-year institutions, have the complete freedom to host any type of event or activities that they want. What outreach themes are a hit with both populations of college students. College students seem to really like trivia. So trivia for tabling events, answering trivia questions for big and small prizes. Um, this virtual Jeopardy game that we created is a hit on both types of campuses. Students love spinning trivia spin wheels. Um, our Instagram is full of interactive trivia on our stories. Trivia of any sort in outreach is very well received by college students. We have learned that for events, cigarette trash and vape trash pickup events are always a really quick, easy, and fun volunteer event at both types of campuses. And then finally, printed educational materials, which I saw that you all also provide, serve as really, really good necessary talking points for the students who are educating their peers at tabling events. So creating and providing printed educational materials is a must for both populations of college students. So we focus most of our time in-house on creating educational pamphlets, flyers, and push cards. I don't think there's a better way to get our message across to large numbers of students. And that makes the entire outreach process much more simplified and easier for our student peer educators. And that is what I have. So, like you all, we all want a future where tobacco nicotine has no place in the lives of young adults at every school across both Texas and the United States and California. So, I hope that I've provided a good overview of the analyses from our college tobacco survey data. Thank you for your time and for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen. I really appreciate your presentation today and to learn more about what colleges and universities are doing in Texas. I think it's really interesting. And I love how you're tabling events. I love how they're so colorful. I feel like that really brings all of the students in. And I love your Jeopardy idea as well. For your Jeopardy, do you do that when you're tabling?
Yes, so it requires like it's in a PowerPoint form and it's completely set up. So, like the answers, the questions disappear just like in real Jeopardy. So it just requires a laptop and some sort of screen. And we don't play a full game. Students come up, they pick like a dollar prize, and the bigger dollar amounts on the game correspond with like t-shirts or like fanny packs, like bigger price items. And if they answer the question correctly, they get the prize and they can walk away or they can stay.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. I've never seen people do Jeopardy during a tabling event, but I think that's a great way to get people in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do any of the attendees, does anyone have any questions for Dr. Nguyen? If not, we will go ahead and go on to our break.
Okay, I can't see the questions, so just let me know if there are any, Symphony.
Yeah, I don't see any questions right now either.
Great.
Yes. So we can go ahead and go on to our break. We will be on a short break and we'll be back at 10:45. So if you want to get up and stretch, grab a drink of water, take care of yourselves, we will be back at 10:45. Thank you again, Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you all.